So the holes on this are 1mm. Now I know it's an issue, we can drill them out on all of them in one go. Let's get this on before the glue dries. There we go, that works now. And then we want to put this on with the little pip facing the rectangle, the raised rectangle there. Okay, that's the first one done. I will label that in a minute, but what I want to do is just drill those holes out because all 4 of them have this part fitted. So what I'm doing is, rather than, so you've got to go in at an angle because currently the hole is that way and the pins are going to go that way. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting the drill through and then moving it upwards so that the flutes open the hole up in the top section. So you can see the hole's been elongated, which will allow us to fit those parts. That's nice and easy and saves me a load of trouble. So I'm just going to take one of these parts and test fit them all. Yep. Yep. Yep, that's that problem solved, easy enough. Right, so next thing is to mark up that pod before I forget and then I don't know where I am. Okay, that's our first pod built up, ready for prep for paint. I'm going to be doing the prepping all at the same time, so we get filler out and fill everything we need to do. So on here we've got filling jobs to do around here where we've got gaps and things. So this, you know, all of this needs to be cleaned as well. So we'll use some alcohol. Rubbing alcohol 70% to clean all this down. So yeah, and we'll do the same on this and then do some filling and what have you, but that's looking pretty cool already. And so yeah, yeah, very nice. I'm gonna let the glue dry. We've got some glue that's oozed out. I'm not worried about any of that. We'll just leave it to do its thing and then we'll sort it out when we're cleaning all the surfaces up. And we have a lot of surfaces here, so each individual surface will need to be looked at, prepped, leveled. So we're going to end up priming this in black, but in the first instance I'm going to prime it in grey, because grey is going to show up all the issues. Then we'll prime in black, then we'll paint the white. Now you might think that makes no sense. Why would you try and paint white over black? Well, it's going to allow me to do some modulation, some depth, do some shadow work without, you know, having to do lots of spraying to do pre-shadow. I just do the whole thing black and then build up the paint where I want it, and it's going to give me some depth, particularly in some of the areas that are under the white framework. So that's that first one done. You've seen how that goes together. I've got another 3 to do. So I'm going to go and spend an hour or so doing that, and then when I come back and I'm done, I'll suddenly have 4 in front of us, like sort of now. Well, there we go. That is the shoulders all done and marked up. So that's as far as I'm going to take these for now before we get to painting. So we can move those out of the way and focus on the next job. Now, I thought the command module was probably the next job. Build it up, ready for painting. Now, my plan is to have this detachable so that we can take this front section away from the back section. That'll be attached to the model permanently, and I can lift that off to have a look inside and look at the detail if I wish, because we'll have the back wall and the pilots sat there. But the problem is this is actually not very stable, this shape, and once you take that off, it is a country mile off wanting to fit. Hugely unstable. So I'm a little bit worried about the paint scuffing, but I'm still going to build along those lines, and if we end up having to secure it in, we have to secure it in. We're just going to have to see at the time. So that part, I think that was separate in the kit. There's no connection points or anything. I've not had to do any cleanup, so I think it must have been separate in the kit somehow. But yeah, so that bit's already done. These, before we can glue them together, we need to put the glazing in. So I've done one, and it was a real pain to do, but that is now in. It's good and strong and fitted in, but I'm going to show you how to do it, because the first impression you get is that the glass is not big enough and that it doesn't fit. So I'm gonna show you on I'll show you on this other side. So we need to put that piece of glass in. So let me just remove that from its sprue. Okay, we don't need to worry too much about cleaning that up because it's not going to be seen. So when you first put this in, let's get you a little bit closer. When you come to first put this in, there's a little nub here and here to push the glass forward, and then you've got 2 pins there and there which go through the location holes. So if I try and do that, so we push it behind those 2 nubs there and then line it up with the pins like so. There we go. When this is flat, it naturally wants to push the window backwards because the bend just isn't sharp enough. So then you push that into place so it's behind those curves, and what happens is you can see the end of the glass. It actually creates a gap. And the reason that it's doing that is because the glass is slightly different shape to the plastic. The nubs are not very well molded, so it's not really holding the glass into place, and in fact it's pushing it back. It's preventing you from seating this flat onto this flat because it's pushing it back. So the solution is to remove the pins and the nubs. So here's one I did earlier. So I've removed the nubs, took a chisel, took them out, sanded them flush. So let's get the glazing for this unit and show you how much better that's going to fit now. So now what I can do is I can line the glass up with these two edges here, rather than using that flat edge. And I can push the top edge up right up into the roof section, which means I get a nice tight glazed finish without the gaps. It looks pretty cool, but you're positioning the glass, you're not using that. What I then did is I ran glue under that to hold it into place. Now your glazing goes right up to the top of this. When you mask it, you're masking up to the plastic edge, the outer shell plastic edge, but you do have a lip on the inside where you're gonna be masking off. So this is all painted black anyway, so it's gonna hide some sins. It's gonna be a matte black. So that is done so that there's no light reflection for the pilots, obviously. So, you know, just like on the nose of a Mustang. So yeah, so you push it into place and then glue it into place, and that fits a lot better than what they've provided in the kit as a solution, because it doesn't work. It's actually working against you. So yeah, there you go. That was the way I've resolved that. So now I'm holding that into place. I'm actually going to glue this one in. And the glue just capillaried down that post as well, so it is going to hold it really solid. So we're gluing it in at the bottom, we'll have glued it in at the side, but we won't have glued it in at the top along this edge here. That's because I don't want to risk any fogging. Even if you were to put PVA or something down, it's likely you're going to see it, so I just don't want to do that. So we'll leave that to dry now, and so I'll do the other two windows, and then we can look at gluing these two halves together. And now that is them ready for paint at that point. So the pins here I have test fitted, and the pins here are not a problem, and we can hold it down and it clamps together quite nicely. You might have some airline cracks, but there is some sanding to do to get the joins smooth. So we will see. But I think getting these windows masked off is an early job. But it's easy enough to get your fingers in and support the glazing with this built up. So we can build it up. So that's what I want to do. I want to get things built up ready for the cleaning stage, so that we do all the clean up at one time, all the filling at one time, then all the priming at one time, all the remedials at one time, so on and so forth. And you know, I think that's just going to be the way to go. I have noticed there is a little bit of sink in these parts around where the sensor array is on each side. There's a bit of sink, so we're definitely gonna, there's quite some chunky plastic behind that, and it's causing a little bit of shrinkage. It's minor, it's minute, but let's deal with it. So yeah, let's get this perfect. You know, I want this to end up in a condition where you'd be happy to film it for a movie. Right then, I'm going to put the other bits of glazing in, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, I've got my glazing in. Doesn't that just look iconic? That look on, just looking down on it like that. Anyway, let's move on. The fit, you're going to have to hold it together. So we're going to start at the nose. It's quite a big piece to put together. So we're going to run the glue into the gap hold it together. Now you really should hold it together, then put the glue in. I know all that. I don't care if it oozes because we've got sanding to do anyway. So that's my start point. Just gonna belt and braces that. Okay, then we're gonna come down one side, and again I can just pinch it together. So let's pinch that together, hold it for a moment, work a little bit further down, go up to the sensor array, just give that a moment, hold it a bit further down, and we can glue inside the sensor array, keep those two parts together, and then do this last little bit here. And it's a little bit more difficult to pinch that together because of the shape. But we are there. Right, so now we can come and do the other side. So again, just pinch it together. Just glue that first bit, give it a moment. Pinch it a bit further down. Okay, I'm just going to hold this together for a moment, then I'll come back to you. So with those two parts together, what we're going to do now is just run some glue into the little pin joints, just for a little bit of rigidity right down in the nose there as well. There we go. And I'm just going to pop that in. Yeah, that's staying together. So we are good. That is that bit done. So I think we can have a look at building up the back end of this next. So we've sort of gone back to step one and the start of the instructions at this point. The real question is, do I want to paint this separately to the panel that goes in? And I think the obvious answer is yes. There's a lot of detail painting to go on there. That means if I don't glue it in, I don't have to bother with masking. So, you know, let's not mask if we don't have to. It's a pain after all. So that gets us with most of the large parts done. So we're going to do some boxes that go inside the frame, I think, once this bit's done. But let's just have a look at how much we have got done. Well, that's what we've got done so far. So, you know, we've got the back end to do, we've got two boxes to do, and the framework. And that's, you know, that gets us to fit, more complicated details like the engine bells, which are going to need some really, probably the most difficult painting job on here is the engine bells. They're going to need a lot of looking after to get a nice metal feel to them. And I was looking at maybe possibly doing a little bit of heat stain. We might do that as well. We will see. So yeah, it's really coming together, I think, and quite quickly. So that's a joy. But I've got lots of fillers, and they all have different pros and cons. And I thought we've probably not done too much on fillers over the years, so I thought it was probably worth just quickly talking about how you end up selecting what filler or putty, if you're an American, that you want to use. And it really does depend on the job, the size of the gap you've got to fill, and so on. So generally, my preferred filler is this perfect plastic putty. It fills gaps. It also has a slight etching ability, and so it can melt into the plastic ever so slightly, so it holds its place when it comes to things like sink and what have you. So yeah, this is a good all-rounder. There is, of course, homemade fillers, sprue goo, which is basically liquid poly cement with plastic card mixed into it, which gives you a gloopy filler, which again, because of the glue content in there, etches in and bonds in, but it can take quite a while to dry. There's Vallejo's plastic putty, which is a water-based, and it's a bit like a mastic, so it's good for filling hairline gaps very, very quickly. You can paint over it immediately. You don't have to wait for drying or anything, but you're not going to be able to sand and shape it. So then I have this powder, top wasn't on, which you mix with CA glue for filling big gaps, milliput for filling huge gaps, 2-part epoxy milliput. It's great for big jobs, such as gaps under buildings on dioramas and that sort of stuff. We've already talked about the Vallejo plastic putty. I've got the Humbro model filler. It's similar but not as good performing as this one. And I've also got this. This is my least favourite of the fillers I've got. It's stringy, it's not easy to work with, it's quite whiffy, and it dries very, very hard. So you only use it for very, very specific jobs, like maybe some sink in an easy to get to place, and that sort of stuff. What it does do though is it sands really well. You can sand very fine and it'll hold it quite nicely. So they've all got pros and cons. Of course, we mustn't forget Mr. Surfacer, which comes in multiple colours now. A lot of people thin it down with Mr. Leveling Thinner and use it as a surface primer, but it's extremely smelly. But you can use it for filling and surface filling as well. The downside of it is slow drying, shrinkage. You have to build it up. I've used it for many years. I enjoy using it, but when it comes to this, what we've got is something that's we're going to want to sand heavily for leveling. So it needs to etch in. It needs to hold its shape, and we need to be able to work with it without it crumbling. So for me, for this particular job, we're going to use perfect plastic putty. So just like there are different fillers, there are different ways of applying fillers. In this case, what we want to do is be liberal with it and make sure we've got good coverage, because we've got misalignment, we've got step, we've got gaps. So we need to be filling it so that it builds up nicely. So we can put it on, leave it to dry. I just want to check whether we see any of the inside lip or not when we put the chrome sensor arrays on. So let me just, if they're countersunk or not. Yeah, you do. Oh, come on. Oh, I can poke it out from the back. There we go, had a quick moment there, didn't we? So I do need to fill the inside of these as well, and then we're going to be doing some sanding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an old knife blade to apply my putty. So a gentle squeeze from the bottom of the tube. I'm going to start at the back here and spread it over our seam, our join I should say. There we go. And what I need it to be is slightly proud. Then I know that I've got some to take back. If you try and be too clever with it, you can leave yourself where you've filled it, you've sanded it, and then realise you've got to build it up a little bit more. So I'd rather do the building up bit now and get it out of the way. Means we're going to have quite a bit of shaping work to do on this, but that's fine. So I think you get the idea. I'm going to go around and make sure I've got plenty of filler over my joint all the way around. And then I'll come back to you on the next job, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but we're going to be moving away from the command module for a bit because this is going to take a while to dry. I'd never really appreciated that the nose had a bit of a flat on it. I'm not sure that it did on my Dinky toys. Right, I'll come back to you in a short while. So I've quickly tidied up all four of these sensor arrays. Two of them we've got to put to one side until we've done all this sanding and stuff. This is still drying, but what I can do is glue these ones in. There's no reason why the whole thing can't be primed with them in place. I do actually have a mask that goes around them to allow me to deal with them separately when I'm ready to. But they go into place really quite nicely. The fit's good. So, and then we can glue them in from the back here where the pins are. And that should be plenty to hold them in. So yeah, we are moving forward. Right. Let's have a look at how firm we think this is. Yeah. Okay, so whilst we've got the filler out, we've got a little bit of filling to do on here. Tiny amounts. I'm not worried about the back so much, but the front definitely. So I'm going to put a little bit of filler in here. I'm using the same filler. We'll let that dry. So we'll have to come back to do the straps. I think once we've sanded all the filler, we'll do that. So the next thing you're going to see is working on this top frame. I've been sort of dreading this because you just know it's hours and hours and hours of seam cleanup. maybe we'll find something else to do and I will put it off as long as we can. So I'm being quite cowardly now, and we're going to jump to these bits here and build up these big sub-assemblies, and we'll go back to all of the framework right at the end, because I'm not looking forward to it. Right then, so I'm tackling step 11 and step 12. Got all the parts out for this, which is what this big pile of part is. We're actually making up quite a large assembly here. We've got some boxes to make up. I haven't quite worked out how this all goes together yet, but you do have the doors going in the ends here. So these are your sort of your corridor sections, if you like, between the command module and the pod, and the engines and the pod. So what quite would be between the engines and the pod, I'm not sure. And we've got a roof section, and we've got these bits which are sort of decorative bits that go on after we've put framework around them, which we make up in step 11. And these are made up of two separate parts that we've got to bring together like this. And looking at them, I'm thinking the cleanup of these is probably best done once these are assembled. So let's have a look at that, I think, because it's a different way of cleaning up. So there's 4 of these that need to be made in total, and what we've got is 2 things that come together which make this separate framework. I'm going to want to paint this as a separate item, so I can get in and get all the detail painted up, shadow and what have you, before it gets assembled. So this is a standalone bit for me as it is. Now, to get these 2 parts to fit, we're going to have to remove sprue gates. We've got sprue gates here which are big and chunky, and they're actually getting in the way of the 2 parts coming together. So I'm just going to take those off from there, and then our other sprue gates were at the back here. So the point of removing the sprue gates is just to ensure there's nothing creating a gap and forcing the 2 parts together. So we just keep test fitting. There we go, that goes together a lot better now. Yeah. Okay, so we're in a position where we can glue this together now, so let's do that because they're fitting together okay. So starting at the back, put some glue into the gap there, just pinch it closed. Don't need to put too much pressure on. If you put too much pressure on, as the plastic starts to melt a little bit and you keep putting pressure on, what will happen is it will give and it'll make the plastic ooze. So wherever possible, I prefer to pinch it closed with fingers rather than clamps for that same reason. Clamps, it keeps applying the pressure, and eventually it could, not always, not even the majority of times, but it has done for me, cause a little bit of molten plastic to ooze out, and then you've got more clean up to do. So we'll go in and put some glue down the center of this bit of machinery, whatever that might be, and then down this pipe at the top. Just pinch that together for a sec, like that. Then I can run a bit more glue down this pipe here, pinch that together. So rather than cleaning seams up, because we're putting 2 parts together, we're actually creating a seam as well. So we've got a mould seam and we've got a join. And my gut feel is we're going to be doing some filling. And that means we might as well do the cleanup all at the same time, rather than clean up, fill, clean up again, because you might end up going over the same things more than once. So, and there's no point doing that. I'll glue into this pipe on the underneath. There we go, that's the part made up. We can put that to one side, let the glue cure. Now 2 of them need an additional pipe to be glued in. So as I look at this, that way the pipe goes in there like that. Now, only 2 of them have this for whatever reason, but that pipe needs to be cleaned up separately, and it's going to be in the way of cleaning this part up. So we'll clean it up, we'll put it with it, but we won't glue it on until we've cleaned up all of this. So I'm going to carry on building these up, cleaning these up, and then I'll come back to you. Hi. Hope you're enjoying the video. I put a lot of effort into making these videos, putting them together, recording them, editing. It takes up so much time. I would really love it if you could just hit that like button for me. It will take you a fraction of a second and it costs you nothing, and it means so much to me and the channel, and will help other people who might enjoy this video find it. You done it? Thank you. Right then, step 12 has us building up one of these corridors. The first thing we're doing is test fitting and noticing that they won't go together. And the reason is these ejector pins here. So taking 100 grit, we can take this down really quickly. Get that nice and smooth and actually reduce it down a little bit just to be sure. Okay, then I'm just going to check. We've got a sprue gate there. That's also getting in the way, but we're not going to do 100 grit on that. We'll do 600 on that. So I don't want to lose the line. There's a couple of ejector pins on there as well. Just make sure that's nice and smooth so we get the best fit possible. Right, let's see how that goes together now. Well, it certainly goes together now, so that's okay. We've got some big sprue gates to chuck out on the end there and on the bottom there. Okay, then when we look at these parts, so you've got a couple of sprue gates on an angle. I think we're best taking those down with our sanding stick. Okay, that should be okay now. This goes on just one of the pods, the forward one. So I think this is actually going to end up fitting into here. Yeah. So that's good to go, I think. Okay, and then we've got a couple of sprue gates on here to clean off as well. So that should be that, and then just check these are nice and flush. Right, I think we are ready for assembly. So we'll start with the two halves. And then this part goes in there like so. Just run some glue around that. Okay. I'm actually going to put some glue on this as well, because it's going to add a bit of strength to it. And now we can put the door in on this side. That looks okay to me. And then finally this goes on. Let's make sure we get the right orientation. So that is going on that way round. Okay, that is our box built up, so we'll let that dry and harden, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. What I want to do is look forward in the instructions just what happens with this. It's the underside, so as the eagle sits, not very visible, but it's very ugly, so I might want to skim it with a bit of plastic card maybe. We will see. Like I say, if there's framework going over it, breaking it up, then a skim of card is a quick solution. So we'll form a view on that. Actually, as I look at step 13, I can see there is framework that goes around this, but this needs to be painted first. So this is a sub-assembly done other than a little bit of final sanding cleanup once it's all set. Next large sub-assemblies to work through are these engine, I don't know what they are, whether they're fuel tanks or what they are really. I don't think, nobody does, including the guy that did the model. They're just things that are connected to the engines, and we need to build these up. Yeah, so they're working on a pin system. I'm just trying to, quite often with pins you find that they cause gaps, but these, I've got to say, this kit, pins have not been an issue. We have, really most of the fit issues have been down to sort of moulding. Yeah, that's okay, that goes together really well. So we don't even need to clean up the sprue gates on these. We can do that as part of cleaning up the parts. So yeah, okay, so nice and easy then. Okay, so I have 4 of those to make in total. So I'll put that to one side ready for clean up. And then we've got these spheres, and again they're working on the basis of male and female. There we go. And there's 2 little square bits. I'm guessing because there's a hole in the top, they need to be at the same place. That's because it's going to mount onto something by the looks of it. And once again, we can put that together without the sprue gates getting in the way. So that's what we'll do. Okay, nice and easy. Again, I'll build up, I think, 4 of these to make, so we can build those up, put them one side, let the glue harden, and then we can clean them up. So nice and easy. Right then, our fillet is dry and things are about to get messy, hence why we've got our sanding cloth down. It's an old foot towel actually. But it's brilliant because you can do all your messy sanding on it, take it out, shake it out, hoover it, wash it, whatever you need to do, and you never got your modelling desk too mucky. So what we've got to do is we've got to take this sort of down to the surface, then tidy it up, and we want to get to a point where we feel like there's no seam, and we might have to prime it first just to see where we've still got work to do. That's quite probable, but we're going to start with as coarse a grit as we've got, which is that one, and just take this down and get this a bit smoother. The other thing about working with a cloth like this is you can sort of clean as you go, but I do keep a little sanding cleaner to hand so I can clean up as I go if I need to. I actually think I need something a little coarser than this to start with, so I'm going to go with a 220 just to take it down a little bit quicker. There we go. Being mindful not to change the shape of anything while we just take this down. We're not going to take it all the way down, we're just sort of getting it close to where we want. The little areas between the raised bits are going to be probably the most difficult bit to sort. There we go. Okay, I'll get the rest of this down and then we'll have a look at the next steps. Right, with most of this taken down, we can now go in with a little bit more detail. I'm still working in the same direction because fundamentally I'm still just taking down the filler at this stage. So the difficult areas are here, and you just need to work it down ever so slowly. If you're not careful, it'll just break away. So I don't want to go in with a knife, I just want to work it down with the tip of the sanding stick. So my sanding stick is quite worn at this end, so I'm just going to sharpen it up a little bit. There we go, that should mean that we get a nice bit of reduction now. There we go. And that means when we put that part in, we're not going to see that join. Well, at least that's the plan. And now I'll do the same on the other side. So for the areas between the raised parts, it's difficult to get in. I'm just going to take the filler down with a file. This is a square file. And we're not pressing, we're just gently rubbing against it. And that'll be enough to reduce our filler here. Obviously with files you've got to be very careful you're not reducing the plastic because they are quite abrasive. So that's working really quite nicely. There we go. And then we can just give the file a little clean. All good. So I'm going to carry on just tidying these up, and if there's anything worth talking about I'll come back to you, but you can see how the gap is already starting to disappear, and as we go down with more grits that should improve as well. So I'm going to carry on and then I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, this has now been cleaned up, ready for us to start finishing the surface and get this where we want it. So I'm starting with a 220 grit sponge, and I'm going to go in the opposite direction that we've been doing so far, and that is to reduce the number of little sanding scratch lines that we've got in there. Now on this side, the gap wasn't so bad, but on this side, on this side the gap wasn't so bad, but on this side you can see we've got a bit of feathering happening, and that's because this was stepped up higher than that, and it's sort of bringing that into line now. So this is going to make things nice and smooth, and hopefully, even though we can see it, when the primer goes on it'll all disappear. So obviously we can't go in the opposite direction between the gaps, so we just have to do the best we can with those. And get things as tidy as we possibly can. You might find when you've done things like this that you look at it and think, actually that needs a little bit more taking back. Then we can go in and tidy up again. Okay, so that's the 220 done. So we're now going to go in with a 400 back in the opposite direction. So every time we go in with the sanding sponge now, we're going in the opposite direction. That's really important. It will make things smoother quicker, and you could basically, during the process, you're going to polish out any marks. So it doesn't take long, we're just quickly going over it, because we're not really cleaning up now, we're polishing. That's an 800 done. I'm going to drop down now to 600. When you're doing things like car bodies, you're slightly widening the area every time, just to feather it all in. Then we're going to 1000 grit. Yeah, that's starting to look really good. Then I've got a 1500 grit. Just a couple more steps to go. So this is 2500. That's the last time we'll be going in this direction. There we go. And then finally 4000 grit, and that's really going to put the polish on. So this takes the plastic back to the original shine of the kit part, and what I can see in the light is it's totally smooth. So I think we've got a good chance that when we prime, we ain't going to see the join line. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Yeah, that should be okay. Now I need to do the in-betweens. And what we're going to do with that is a little bit of very fine emery board or emery cloth, whichever you've got. It's going to be less obvious in the middle anyway. So we'll go in, make sure everything's clear, make sure we're happy it's nice and even. And then this is super fine. There we go. Now I have a scratch in here. I'm not sure how we did that, but I can use this little bit of emery to take that out, and it's wet and dry. There we go. You won't see that when that gets primed. Right, I'm going to do this side and then I'll come back to you. So with that all done, we can now put in the last of the sensor arrays. So just like we did before, plop them in and glue them in from the inside. That one's fallen out. That was a tight fit that's become a loose fit somehow. So that's our command module done, ready for painting, so I'm happy with that. So we've got more parts to clean up, so let's have a look at those. So we do have to take the filler back on these. So I'm going to use a file to start with. Then we can go in with our sanding stick and get that looking sharp. There we go. You'd never know that that had been filled, or you won't do when it gets painted. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to do this all the way around, and then I think our next job is to sort these out. Right then, our straps on here are just a fraction over a millimetre, but we can get away with a millimetre. And you can see here I've cut some millimetre tape, we've wrapped it around, and what an improvement that is. So that's my solution. So I'm using the easy cutting mat for this job. I'm just going to square it off. And as for length, I'm going to go 3, I think. So, get my tweezers. What have I done with them? So start by fixing it underneath, getting it into position. Wrap it around, make sure it's straight. There we go. So that looks so much better. So we'll do that all the way around. So another 4 of those. It'll take no time at all.